off and less presenting. Thank you. We are now recording. Mr. Chairman, we're ready to begin.
Thank you so much, Guthrie. Welcome to all of you. This is a very convenient, but not always the most, I think, email, anyway. Where do I go with this? Anyway, I thank you that you're here, that we're meeting together and virtually, and a couple comments I want to make as we move forward in today's meeting. I don't yet see Natalie Arnott. Has she signed in? You know?
I do not see that Commissioner Arnott has joined yet.
Okay. I'll hold on that for a second then. I have a formal announcement to make, and that is, and I'm glad to be able to do this. Commissioner Dembro has agreed to be a member of the Funding and Achievement Subcommittee of the Commission, and so I'm making that formal announcement. He attended and participated in that meeting yesterday, and we're grateful to have you as a part of that work. So thank you so much, Commissioner Dembro. I wanted to issue a few comments. Last week and a half ago, I was able to participate in something called the Artificiality Summit in Bend. Our own Commissioner Edwards is the founder or co-founder of that event, and I was grateful to be able to be a part of that. And I just want to make a couple comments on that because I think a lot of us have an interest in sort of the role that artificial intelligence and that kind of technology might have on education. And so I attended that event with that in mind. It wasn't the specific point of that institute, but that's certainly the way I looked at it. And so one of the things I just wanted to, I think I came to that meeting with a question, which is, so how will AI affect how we teach and what we teach? And I came away with a lot of perhaps new insights, but a lot of new questions, which I think is high praise for an event such as that. And I think mostly what I came with were new questions about what it means, what does the word intelligence mean, how learning happens, which is something that we in education think about a lot and perhaps don't always have clear answers to, and then just how really the big one. So in the context of all of that and thoughts about the artificiality of this, some new questions about what does it mean to be human, and I would just say that those three questions have prompted me to think more deeply about the role that AI will play in the future of education. And I think it's going to have a profound effect on it. I guess, sort of at what we call the tectonic level. And so I was very grateful to be able to be a part of this, and I'm looking forward to future conversation about so the role that AI will play in our future work in higher education and continuing learners. And I wanted to give Commissioner Edwards an opportunity maybe to add a few comments if you had regarding that experience. Commissioner Edwards?
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Hammond. Yes, this year's summit, it's an annual summit, was very successful. We were double the size and double the time and double the sort of mind-blowing capacity. I mean, we changed people's lives, literally. It's a very, very different perspective on AI that we have. Our focus is it's just laser focused on the human experience of AI. What does it mean to be human with AI? And we have, we're obviously small, but we're looking to grow. Our research is about how this is changing us and why. So we study the human, people's felt experience, and we translate that into frameworks that help us understand at a practical level, in one case, how to think about learning, but also how to think about working with AI, what it's going to do to just our entire system of learning and working, what makes us individuals, teams, and society sort of function differently. So we have a very high level where we track, we are very high level, we track how people are staying authors of their own minds, if you like. And this human ability to stay self-aware, to have an ethical perspective, to be agentive, to actually have agency, even when our reasoning is co-shaped by AI. And we call this cognitive sovereignty. And I can imagine as educators, this is a pretty intuitive concept for you guys. It's how AI is genuinely changing our abilities here, and our core focus is how, why, and to what end. So if you're interested to know more, our website's a really rich resource of content on why we think machines are genuinely changing what it means to be human. There's we go everywhere from the very core base of some of the scientific paradigm changes that are happening around how we conceive of intelligence as something that in some ways we discover. But we have a very rich foundation and some key scholarship. But our research is very much about focusing on how it's manifesting in humans around how ideas come from AI, how identity shifts with AI, and how a sense of meaning making changes. So just finally, higher ed is a pretty big focus for us, because that's where many people do forge their sense of identity. It's where they get their sense of agency, their ethical outlook, and their ability to be self-aware. So we're pretty, we're pretty resolved that higher ed particularly is going to have to transform significantly with AIs, and it's not just about cheating and who's using AI. This is a very, very deep shift in our core purpose around education. It's not going to be an easy transition. I think it's made more pressing and much more difficult with everything else that's going on that you all know about well, and that in our mind is not a coincidence that this intersection is happening at the same time, but perhaps that's a different topic. So for now, I'll just say AI is not just a tool. It's not the same as previous ed tech by any stretch. It's fundamentally changing who we are as humans. And it's with that deep realization that, we really do believe we have to rethink everything. So thank you, Greg, for being at the summit and for those words.
Thank you so much, Helen. Appreciate it. Commissioner Edwards, thank you very, very much. I don't yet see Commissioner Arnott on our agenda yet, but I did want to note to all of us that it is probable that this will be her last meeting, because her term has expired, and the governor has made a appointment to replace her position. And so if she does is in attendance today, I just want to express my thanks for her service on the commission, adding her perspective to our work. It's been valuable, and really grateful for the commitment that she has given to the work of the commission. So Commissioner Arnott, I just want to let you know that. So could we now take the roll call?
Yes, thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. I will now call roll. Greg Heyman.
Present.
Emily Simnett.
Present.
Natalie Arnott. Michael Dembro.
Here.
Richard Devlin. Helen Edwards.
Here.
Arnel Fajardo. Evelyn Coker.
Here.
Devin Lawson. Teresa Martinez.
Here.
Eric Nijue.
Present.
Jen Proctor Andrews.
Here.
Mary Middleton.
Here.
Jennifer Smith.
Here.
Gail Yamasaki.
Here.
That is roll, Chair, and we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Guthrie. We'll move on to action item, which is to approve the October full HEC meeting minutes. Are there any corrections or questions before we move forward? I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes from October.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Second.
I move to second.
Thank you so much. All in favor? Just some sort of hand or verbal signal?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved from our October meeting. I will move on to a report from our Executive Director, Ben Cannon.
Good morning, commissioners. Thanks for participating again this morning in what came up quickly. We feels like we just met. I know in preparing this meeting's materials, we were scrambling a bit. There's just a shorter than typical gap between our October and November meetings. Wanted to just call attention to a few things. I'll dedicate the majority of my remarks to the budget reduction exercise and updating you on that. But before I get there, did want to call attention to the fact that your agenda is in a different format, and that's not particularly important, except for the fact that it represents a much larger effort on the part of the agency to make our public materials more accessible, including to people who use adaptive technology to read electronic documents. So you'll see that reflected, I think, over time in other public documents coming from the commission, that the formatting will be different because we're attempting, like other public agencies, to come into compliance with evolving federal laws related to accessibility. And that's, again, just this is sort of tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of work underway led by our communications office and our DEIA office to try to make our materials more accessible to all Oregonians and all members of the public. All right, you are aware, I talked about it last month, that in early October, the Legislative Fiscal Office, the Joint Ways and Means Committee for the legislature and its staff, requested that every state executive branch agency submit to that office options for reducing our agency budget, our current 2025-27 biennial budget, by as much as 5%. And it was requested that we present those options in 2.5% and 5% increments. Earlier this week, it was on a compressed timeline. We worked with the governor and the chief financial office, and earlier this week, on Monday, we met their deadline by submitting that list. We completed that exercise, and those materials, which I will share with you and partners later today, will be posted publicly to the legislative website on Monday, and then I expect that we'll talk about it in an interim Ways and Means Committee hearing the following week. Before I share a few highlights or lowlights, if you would, of our submission, I want to say a few things about the process. First, what we've submitted does not represent a recommendation from the HEC or from the governor. The cuts that we describe within that document would have a detrimental effect on students, on job seekers, on nonprofits, on workforce boards, on community colleges, on public universities, and on the agency. We attempt to make this clear in the cover letter that accompanies our submission and in the analyses, the descriptions of the impacts that each of the items that we've identified contain. Second, I want to emphasize that this process that we're undergoing with the legislature should simply be understood at this point simply as an exercise in scenario planning, right? At this point, it's not anyone's plan. What we've proposed is not a proposal, and it's not a plan. A 5% cut to the state budget, which is the sort of upper limit of what we've modeled, probably represents something close to a worst case scenario. Understandably, the legislature wants to know its options and prepare for a range of scenarios, including that sort of potentially worst case scenario where statewide budget cuts of as much as 5% could be required. But none of what we've put in this document should be understood as any kind of foregone conclusion. And partly that's because there will be a lot of discussion between now and the February legislative session, when it is possible that the legislature will make reductions to the current state budget. They'll hear from us about this submission and those options. They'll hear from partners, from advocates, who will all be weighing in. And of course, the legislature will take that into account and make final decisions if there are reductions that will undoubtedly look different than what we have put in this proposal. So let me say a few words about the substance. And again, I'll share via email with you and partners later today more detail. But when we approached this exercise internally as staff, we started with the Commission's strategic plan and our equity lens. We tried to prioritize, in terms of potential reductions, areas that would have the least impact on students, particularly the most vulnerable. We also looked to areas where there are other state or federal programs that might continue to provide some support to the populations who would be impacted by the cuts we described. We did look more closely at areas that have received recent state funding growth. Again, none of these criteria were determinate, but these were the kind of criteria that we applied as we underwent this exercise. And we looked closely for areas where a cut could also result in some agency level administrative efficiency through potential program mergers or consolidation. So some of that is reflected. As a result of those criteria, within our submission, we hold the Oregon Opportunity Grant and the Oregon Tribal Student Grant harmless. So they are not touched in this submission, even though they represent nearly 11% of our total general fund and lottery fund budgets. These are large programs combined for the HECC, and we set those aside. We didn't touch them. This required us to identify greater than 5% cuts in other areas of our budget. And so I'll mention a few of those that receive sort of a greater than 5% cut in order to, in effect, protect certain areas of the budget that were established as priorities for us. And those areas included, and I'll list them kind of in the priority that we express in the document. First, the HECC agency. So we, under what we've submitted, our operations and administration would be affected by considerably more than the 5% overall. Certain workforce programs, likewise, sports lottery, the public university state programs, and the statewide public service programs, including Extension, Ag Experiment Station, and Forest Research Laboratory at OSU, and career pathways at community colleges. All of those are areas that receive somewhat greater than 5% reductions within this exercise. Cuts to the Public University Support Fund, the Community College Support Fund, and Oregon Health and Sciences Universities, these core operating dollars that are the bulk of the vast majority of our state budget, those would not exceed, in what we're submitting, those reductions would not exceed 5%. They're a little less than that for community colleges. They're at about that for the PUSF and OHSU. Finally, under that full 5% reduction, sort of at the maximum, at the very bottom of our list, there are a couple of items I wanted to highlight. One would be that in 26-27, the upcoming academic year, we would, under this approach, we would not award Oregon Promise grants to new students. That's a $13 million savings, so we would continue to fund existing students, and we would significantly curtail the Oregon Student Child Care Grant, a relatively small grant program that we administer, again, in the second year of the biennium in 26-27. Again, I just want to emphasize, we recognize this is not a proposal, this is not a recommendation. There are options on this list that would cause significant hardship for Oregon students, colleges, universities, workforce organizations, and others. They would come on top of actual cuts to many of those institutions and organizations and entities that were the result of the 2025-27 budget that was adopted by the legislature in June. So we're talking about an environment that is already, even before undergoing this exercise, is experiencing reductions, layoffs across many of our colleges and universities and other organizations. increasing tuition for students and their families, and other direct impacts. And that's before we even talk about these reductions. So this is not a position, of course, that we want to be in or are advocating for, but it is where we find ourselves, and we're in response to a request from the legislature that, again, is designed to give them options. Finally, and before I wrap this up, I want to say, because I think there are a number of folks, you have testimony in your packet related to the outdoor school program, and I think there are a number of folks signed up to testify on that. And I just want to just provide for the commission a little bit of context here. You're hearing about outdoor school because state lottery fund dedicated by voters to that program is in our budget, because under that initiative and the structure of outdoor school funding for the state of Oregon, those funds are administered by Oregon State University's Extension Office. And state funding for extension broadly, including outdoor school, is in the HECC budget because it is at Oregon State University. And extension is one of several programs that is in a larger budget item or budget line of the HECC called the statewide public services I mentioned earlier. Extension, Forest Research Lab, and Ag Experiment Station, all at Oregon State University, focused on research and outreach and public service to Oregonians. That's about a $245 million item in the HECC budget for those entities. And outdoor school funding is a part of that. You see reference in the testimony, the written testimony that was submitted to the HECC, you see reference to a proposed 12.78% cut to outdoor school funding. That is a reflection of the fact that one of many drafts that staff worked on over the last month, we probably went through 10 or 12 drafts of this exercise, and one that we shared with some of the institutions, including OSU, included a 12.78, showed what would be a 12.78% reduction to outdoor school funding. The reason for that, and I don't want to dwell on that, but the reason is we were attempting at that point to balance our lottery fund budget separately from our general fund budget. Both had to, we were trying to find a way to get 5% reductions in both. And we only get lottery funding for 3 programs: sports lottery, outdoor school, and the Oregon Opportunity Grant. And most of that funding is for the Oregon Opportunity Grant. And to hang on to to not cut the Oregon Opportunity Grant and balance that lottery fund budget, we had to cut more deeply, or propose or show cuts more deeply in other areas. And so that was reflected in that. That's not the version that we submitted to the Legislative Fiscal Office earlier this week. In fact, the version that we submitted is silent on the question of outdoor school cuts. It shows for the statewide public service programs at OSU, that broad, that general category of statewide public service funding for Oregon State University, it shows a little greater than a 5% reduction. That's for the combination of extension, Ag Experiment Station, and Forest Research, that $245 million budget that in the submission we made earlier last week, we show an up to $17 million reduction across the board. I expect that if the legislature, got serious and was really looking at 5% reductions, it would further detail, as it typically does within the budget it gives to the HECC, dollar amounts for those programs, but we have not specified that within our submission. So I wanted to provide that context. I expect you will, again, hear from folks who are rightfully advocating for outdoor school. That's terrific, important program, and glad that they're here, paying attention, engaging. These will be the legislature's decisions. We are attempting to provide some options and information, and I think that's where I'll leave it off. The final thing I will say, in a complete shift of gears, and this is news that I think many of you, if not all of you, will hear for the first time, is that a long-time and well-known employee of the HECC, Juan Baez-Arevalo, is finishing his service with the HECC this month. And I want to take a minute on this. Juan leads our Office of Student Access and Completion, OSAC. And he has done so since 2017. Prior to that, he worked at HECC as the director of our Office of Private Post-Secondary Education. He was one of my very first hires when I was appointed to this job in 2013. And so with 12 years, after 12 years, nearly 12 years at the HECC, he is moving on in his life and career. And I am so incredibly grateful to the extraordinary service that Juan has provided to the HECC and to the state of Oregon. I felt so lucky to find him when we were starting up this agency, and he was a steady and experienced and just kind person to work with and help build the agency. And when we needed a new OSAC director, I didn't think twice about putting him in that role. And he's been an extraordinary advocate for students and student financial aid, a really great technical leader and strategic leader. So he's leaving behind a great legacy at HECC, and we certainly wish him well. And we will be, Ramona and I, our Deputy Ramona Rodemaker and I will be announcing a interim director for OSAC here in the next couple of weeks. And then at some point in 2026, we will launch a recruitment for a permanent head of that office within HECC. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. I have a couple of I always need to check my list before I wind up. Just a couple of other things. One, as usual in your packets, is the monthly budget update. This tracks our spending within the current biennium against what was appropriated. So you get a sense of where we are, and we can follow up if you have questions about any of that. And I think we sort of squeezed in here, Emily, Vice Chair Simnett and I squeezed in a little update from yesterday's Funding and Achievements Subcommittee meeting. The committee met for about an hour and 15 minutes yesterday to review one item, which is the upcoming report from the commission to the legislature in response to the budget note that the Legislative Budget Committee put in the HECC budget in June, directing us, the commission, to report on the sort of experience of efficiency within our public universities' budget efficiencies and make recommendations to the legislature on any steps that we can take to improve budget efficiency, spending efficiency at public universities. So the subcommittee yesterday reviewed a draft of that report. It's a draft that has also been reviewed by our partners, including public universities, and that we've received a lot of feedback on. Between now and your December meeting, we staff will complete another draft of that report, taking into account another round of feedback that's coming on this first draft, as well as the conversation that commissioners had yesterday. We'll include recommendations that were not incorporated into the draft that you reviewed yesterday. So we'll take a shot at some recommendations, and that will be presented to the full commission ultimately in December for your potential adoption and submission to the legislature in order to meet their deadline. They wanted this report before the February session. So without a meeting in January, that is our timeline for your final action, I hope, on that report. I would encourage commissioners who are not on the F&A subcommittee to take a look at some point, even of the draft that the subcommittee reviewed yesterday. Again, there will be a different draft in your final presented in December, but it will not be. The findings will probably be not wildly different, right? We're making some technical and other improvements, but I think you'll get a good sense from the version that the subcommittee reviewed yesterday of the direction that we're headed with this report. And so if you have the opportunity, I'd encourage you to take a look. And if you have thoughts about the implications of that and potential recommendations, please contact me individually. Vice Chair Simnett, anything that you want to add about yesterday's F&A meeting?
Only that just to echo what you said, Ben, about inviting people to take a look at the materials ahead of time. We had a really I wouldn't say we had time for a discussion, but we had a lot of great questions that came up for us during our discussion. And so I would really encourage everyone to take a look. And if you do have questions about that, then to reach out to Ben and Jim, and so that you're familiar with that, the document and the findings, so we can really focus our conversation on the recommendations that are currently being worked on.
Thank you. Ben, I want to just thank you for this report. I especially appreciate your explanation of the nature of the budget scenario planning that we've been requested to do. I think that that's sort of a critical background understanding, especially as we go into the public testimony in a few minutes. And so really grateful for that. And for your explanation on the work of the Funding and Achievement Committee yesterday, and both you and Commissioner Simnett on that. So are there any other questions or comments on our Executive Director report? Hearing none, we're going to move on to the next item, 3.0 on the agenda, that is public testimony. We do have quite a number of people who have signed up to provide oral testimony. You also have a number of written testimonies attached to the live version of the agenda online. So I want to make you aware of those. I do want to let you know that because we have so many oral testimonies, that we're going to limit each to 2 minutes. And Guthrie is going to be keeping track of time for that. And also, so we're going to move into the public testimony period.
Thank you, Chair. I will now call oral public testimony in the order of sign up. I will be timing folks 2 minutes per slot. If you are not actively testifying, please leave your mic and camera disabled. First up, we have Randy Weber.
Good morning, Chair Heyman and Commissioners. My name is Randy Weber, and I have the honor of serving as the president of Rogue Community College. Over the past 4 years, RCC has been the fastest growing college in Oregon, with a nearly 50% increase in overall FTE. I share this not to boast, but to underscore the impact of our strategic priorities. First, offering flexible programs that support students balancing work and school. And second, aligning our offerings with industry partner needs. The base degree reflects both commitments. When the statewide conversation around Bachelors of Science in Nursing began, we consulted our 2 primary hospital partners. They emphasized a greater need for more RNs instead of BSNs. Based on that feedback, we worked with them to expand our RN program rather than pursuing a BSN, an example of how we respond directly to local demand. The industry requiring a baccalaureate that has continued to request our help in supporting their workforce needs has been our partners in K-12. When I shared with a few superintendents that we were receiving concern about developing a program, they strongly requested that we continue our pursuit. That is the reason I'm before you today. According to the Oregon Employment Department's 10-year projections, Jackson and Josephine counties will see over 140 education-related openings annually. Our proposed consortium aims to address these challenges our industry partners are facing. We're not seeking to compete with Oregon's universities, but to offer another local alternative to the out-of-state programs students increasingly choose. RCC has long supported transfer pathways to SOU and other partners, and we remain committed to doing so. In closing, this degree proposal is a direct response to the consistent requests our local K-12 partners have asked for. If we can't pursue program growth based on clear demand and documented need, I struggle to see how we can fulfill our mission with confidence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, President Weber.
Next up, we have Terry Hopkins.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Commission. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you. For the record, my name is Terry Hopkins, and I serve as the President and CEO of the Grants Pass and Josephine County Chamber of Commerce. I want to take a moment to thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of Rogue Community College base degree proposal. I have submitted written testimony. I see there's a lot of people, so I'm going to keep this brief. But our chamber represents hundreds of local employers who understand that education is the foundation of our local economic vitality. Today, that foundation is strained a bit by severe teacher shortage. I'm sure, as you're fully aware, across Oregon last year, there were more than 2,000 teachers working under restricted or emergency licenses. And Southern Oregon's no exception, hundreds of them right here in my valley. That's not sustainable to our schools or students. Road Community College has been a longstanding partner of local businesses providing the needs that they bring up. This proposed Bachelor of Applied Science in Education offers a practical local solution. It allows aspiring teachers who are already working in classrooms, many of them on restricted or provisional license, the opportunity to complete their full certification without uprooting their families or leaving our community. This program builds a stronger, more stable workforce by helping those already dedicated to our students move from temporary credentials to long-term careers in education. And because it's delivered locally, it keeps tuition dollars here in Oregon, supporting our regional economy instead of flowing to out-of-state or online universities. In short, providing the Bachelor of Applied Science in Education program through Road Community College helps us retain teachers, improve quality, and strengthen both our schools and community. Thank you for your time today, as well as accepting my written testimony for consideration of this important program.
Thank you.
Next up, Deborah Bragg.
Thank you. My name is Deborah Bragg, and I'm the founding director of the Community College Research Initiatives Group at the University of Washington. I've studied higher education and community colleges throughout my career, including in Oregon and other countries that offer community college bachelor's, or what I'll call CCB degrees. I recently conducted a national study of CCB degrees in education, and I want to share 4 main findings. First, the earliest CCB degrees in education go back 35 years. Education degrees go back 25 years, with the last 10 years showing much more growth due to addressing the teacher shortage. Today, we see over 1,000 CCB education graduates per year in the country. And when all the approved programs, many recently online, produce graduates, we expect to see 1,500 teachers per year. This 50% increase will mean more bachelor's trained teachers in underserved communities. And let me tell you why. My research shows 1/3 of the community colleges conferring CCB degrees in the country are in rural regions. And the graduates of these programs are more racially diverse than university education graduates. National data on the K-12 teacher workforce shows 20% of teachers are Black, Hispanic, multiracial, and other races. But my research shows 37% of community college education graduates identify with racial groups other than white. A recent Oregon report on the racial makeup of K-12 teachers shows 83% are white, and this means there's a 30% gap in the CCB teacher graduates of color and Oregon's current K-12 workforce. I've interviewed many students who are education graduates, and they talk about the transformation this degree has made for them. Many move from paraprofessional positions into teaching certification positions, which triples their income. It makes a difference to their families and to their communities. I thank you.
I apologize. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up, Juliet Long.
Good morning, Commissioners and Director Kanan. My name is Juliet Long, and I'm here as a representative from the Bachelor of Applied Science in Education Consortium at Road Community College. I am also the second of 3 generations in my family to graduate from SOU and want to state for the record how much I value and respect them both personally and professionally. I recognize that our proposed degree may appear to be in competition with SOU's program. I disagree. Our program approach and audiences are different. There is also room and real need for both programs to exist and to thrive. The best solutions to address licensed teacher challenges will come from us working together to provide different types of access and multiple opportunities for our students. In these last months, since we have received feedback from our regional university partners, we have now committed to working even more collaboratively with SOU and the Oregon Association of Colleges for Teacher Education to address this problem. Effective last month, we now have SOU representation on the BASE Advisory Committee. Together, RCC and SOU are exploring opportunities for shared program marketing, developing unified messaging for advising prospective students, creating direct admission pathways, sharing teacher resources, and pursuing joint grants to better support future educators in the Rogue Valley. I would also like to address the suggestion that has been brought forward that a Bachelor of Applied Science degree in education is a second-tier credential and that certain populations of students would be disadvantaged by receiving it. There is no evidence to support this claim. The Bachelor of Applied Science is a fully accredited bachelor's degree recognized by the American Association of Colleges and Universities. Our program will be accredited by the Northwest Commission on Colleges and Universities, the same regional accrediting body that oversees the many Oregon universities currently offering their own BAS degrees. Our BAS in Education program will also be accredited by the Association for Advancing Quality in Educator Preparation, the same national accrediting body that approves education programs at Oregon universities. Any suggestion or implication that this degree holds less values for students is misinformed. In closing, I offer that approving this program is in direct alignment with the HECC's mission, vision, values, and strategic goals. In particular, your stated value of determination that includes the call that a strong future demands our relentless determination to more effectively center the needs of our learners and better address employers' needs. This is the foundation of the BASE Consortium's work. I urge the Commission to move forward with this value in mind and focus on the most critical issue before us, ensuring that Oregon's educator preparation system is responsive, inclusive, and aligned with the needs of our communities. As leaders in post-secondary education, you have the opportunity and responsibility to help ensure that every student in Oregon's K-12 classrooms has access to highly qualified, well-prepared teachers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Abby Lee. Abby Lee. Perhaps we'll come back and go on to Catherine Alexander.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, Executive Director Cannon, and the rest of the members of the Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to offer comments today. My name is Catherine Alexander, and I'm the CEO and Director of Programs for Red Alder Group. We're a small education service provider based in Salem that serves elementary and middle school students through Oregon at state parks and nonprofit camp facilities. I'm deeply concerned about the proposed or the possibility of an additional cut to the 2025-27 budget for outdoor school. This would compound serious program impacts resulting from the previous 20% reduction in funding. At Red Alder, we provide outdoor school for 500 to 1,000 students annually in Marion, Pocono, Hill, Clackamas, and Lynn counties. While we're not the largest provider in the state, our priority is supporting under-resourced students from marginalized and rural communities. It's a labor of love and part of our commitment to student success in Oregon. In 2016, funding for outdoor school was overwhelmingly approved by ballot measure 99. And allocating 4% of lottery funds adjusted for inflation represents the will of Oregon voters. We understand this is a challenging budget environment. However, budget cuts to date have already profoundly impacted our outdoor school program. Imposing any additional cuts to statewide outdoor school funding would further compromise our ability to provide this valuable educational experience for 5th and 6th graders in spring 2026. In fact, it would make it extremely difficult for us to fulfill the statutory mandates codified in Senate Bill 439, especially for students with exceptional needs. Oregon students need and deserve this critical opportunity to learn about Oregon's history, communities, and natural resources. Outdoor school is a foundational educational experience for Oregon students, and we ask the Commission to please spare this innovative and effective program from any further cuts to the already reduced funding for this biennium. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dan Prince. Dan Prince.
Good morning, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, Executive Director Cannon, members of the Commission. My name is Daniel Prince. I live in Corbett, Oregon. I was one of 3 chief petitioners for ballot measure 99, Outdoor School for All. In 2016, Oregon voters overwhelmingly passed Measure 99, which directed 4% of lottery revenue to fund a week of outdoor school for every Oregon 5th or 6th grader. As noted by Executive Director Cannon, statute names Oregon State University Extension Service as the granting agency to distribute Measure 99 funds to public school districts. That is why a K-12 school program is found in the HECC budget. Outdoor school funds are K-12 funds stewarded by OSU Extension. In June, the Oregon legislature cut the allocation for outdoor school to 20% below what voters intended through Measure 99. This has resulted in significant negative effects for children. Shorter programs, or in some cases, no outdoor school program at all, educator layoffs, reduced support services, and more. Recently, we learned that as part of this budget exercise, all state agencies were asked to prepare a 5% budget reduction. HECC proposed an outsized 12.78% cut to outdoor school. That does not feel like stewardship. That feels like poaching. Giving an outsized cut to outdoor school to protect other higher ed programming is in direct defiance of the will of the voters. Additional cuts to outdoor school, on top of the drastic cuts already administered, would be devastating to a program that has been a point of pride for Oregon for nearly 70 years. Oregon Outdoor School joins the Bottle Bill and public beaches as a core legacy feature of our state. I want to acknowledge the difficult times we are in, not just budgetarily. I recognize that higher ed in this country is under attack simply because people in higher ed are curious and believe in the freedom of expression. Higher ed is critical to our democracy. I want to thank the Commission and the Executive Director for your steady leadership during tough times. I also call on HECC to be responsible stewards of outdoor school and propose no further cuts to outdoor school programs. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Next up, Cindy Robert.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Robert, and I'm with the Oregon Alliance of Independent Colleges and Universities, Oregon's 11 nonprofit institutions of higher education. As you deliberate the need for a BAS in education, I want to share with you some information for your consideration. The National Opinion Research Center, based at the University of Chicago, released a survey in 2022 that showed that fewer than 1 in 5 Americans, just 18%, would encourage a young person to become a K-12 teacher, citing low pay, lack of sufficient school resources, and a stressful work environment as major barriers. In 2022, the National Education Center, citing a PDK poll of parents, revealed that only 37% said they would want a child of theirs to become a teacher. In 2024, Educators for Excellence shared results from the 7th annual Voices from the Classroom survey of teachers, which found that only 16% of teachers recommend the profession to others. And the Student Research Foundation found that only 3.6% of high school students themselves aspire to be teachers. So communities, parents, students, and teachers have a more negative view of the teaching profession than ever before. The pipeline problem in Oregon is not due to lack of capacity or access or schedule flexibility or online coursework availability at Oregon's EPPs. It's about a job that fewer people want to do. It is about a job we need to make more attractive. It is about a job that is not receiving the respect and admiration from all that it deserves. I hope the Commission and the department staff will choose to initiate an effort to change this narrative about being a teacher, help determine ways to inspire students to the profession, and help Oregon students become Oregon teachers. The Alliance wants to help.
Thank you.
Next up, Gwen Hawley.
Hello, good morning. I'll do my best. Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, members of the Commission. My name is Gwen Hawley. I'm a former outdoor school staff member, and I live in Portland. This proposed budget threatens the safety of children and staff and brings the continuation of outdoor school into question. The existence of our program is at stake. If this budget was approved, That would happen against the wishes of Oregon voters who overwhelmingly passed Measure 99 in 2016. How could we suggest any cut to outdoor school? The current budget cuts are a disaster for us. I've heard horror stories from former colleagues about the living conditions for students. There are staff today who work from 6:30 a.m. to past midnight. These are staff who at times are the sole person responsible for the safety and health of students. A question that seems genuine becomes a joke under our working conditions. When can I go to the bathroom is a question usually laughed at until someone responds, I don't know, 1 a.m.? A good amount of these staff go home on Friday and on Saturday clock into work at their second job. I know staff who stayed up until 3 a.m. creating new language resources to support students who recently moved here from Ukraine. Now, both me and that friend have lost our retirement, our healthcare, our dental insurance, our income. This is what the state has rewarded our dedication with. What if people who were inspired by the idea of providing environmental education, what if they were supported for their commitment to Oregon? I worked at outdoor school for 6 years of my life. I staked everything on the fact that citizens of Oregon supported outdoor school. Now I no longer have a job or a career path, and I am at risk for homelessness. You have already crossed the line. Please do not step any further. I don't accept the idea that these cuts are necessary or just. This is torture. This is cruel. Children do not deserve this, and working Oregonians do not deserve this. What we deserve is full restoration of the outdoor school budget, $6 million by 2026, 2027. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Angela Vosenkool.
Chair Heyman, commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. Angela Vosenkool, and I serve as the Chair of Education at Eastern Oregon University. I want to begin by recognizing that we all share a common goal, ensuring that every Oregon student has access to a qualified, well-prepared, and well-supported teacher in every classroom. This is the goal that unites us across institutions, community colleges, universities, and school districts alike. As an educator and as chair of education at Eastern Oregon University, I see every day how transformative great teachers can be, especially in our rural and underserved communities. We all understand that the teacher shortage is real and urgent, but in responding to it, we must make sure that our solutions strengthen the system rather than fragment it. Expanding the number of degree granting institutions does not necessarily expand the number for future teachers. It spreads thin the already limited resources and partnerships that ensure teacher quality and readiness. A more strategic solution would be to invest in and expand the transfer and partnership pathways we already have, ensuring that community colleges and universities continue working together rather than in competition. Additionally, we cannot ignore that fewer and fewer students are choosing education as a career. Across the nation and here in Oregon, the percentage of high school students aspiring to become teachers has dropped dramatically. Surveys show that fewer than 1 in 5 Americans would encourage a young person to enter the profession, largely due to concerns about pay, stress, and lack of support both inside and outside the classroom. The core issue then is not that students lack access to a degree, it's that too few are choosing to pursue this calling in the first place. We also need to acknowledge that Oregon's Grow Your Own programs, one of our most effective strategies for recruiting and retaining local educators, are now in their final year of funding. These initiatives have successfully brought more diverse, community-rooted candidates to the teaching profession, and they deserve continued investment and support. Oregon's public universities already provide affordable, flexible, and high-quality teacher preparation options that address this challenge while keeping Oregon students in Oregon. 115 education majors currently enrolled at EOU alone. These programs are designed to serve place-bound students and rural communities, often in partnership with community college. At Eastern Oregon University, for example, 57% of our senior cohort this year transferred to college. This demonstrates that our existing partnerships are already working to provide flexible, affordable, and place-based pathways into teaching.
I'm sorry to
Thank you for your
interject.
time
Oh,
and your ongoing commitment.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Next up, Bonnie Mann. Bonnie Mann. We'll move to the next, which is Daniel Coyle. Daniel Coyle.
This is Bonnie Mann here. I'm very
Oh,
sorry. I just had trouble finding the mic button there.
no worries. We'll reset the timer. Bonnie Mann, please proceed.
Okay, good morning. My name is Bonnie Mann. I'm a professor of philosophy at the University of Oregon and a member of the Executive Council of United Academics. As most of you know, last spring and then again this summer, we faced cuts to many of our teaching faculty and then plans to cut multiple academic programs and departments, including 20 to 30 tenured or tenure track faculty. And these kinds of cuts are on the table at a number of Oregon's four-year institutions. We avoided the most radical and extreme plans at our university made by administrators at U of O, where the decision makers are new to Oregon and have no deep roots in our state, only because our elected officials stood up for us. A more reasonable plan emerged because of that pushback, and we count on our elected officials to exercise their oversight over the integrity of our academic programs as we face the challenges ahead. And I'm asking that the HECC have a serious conversation about how to interpret ORS 352.089 and OIR 715-013-00201, which gives HECC oversight over any significant change to academic programs. Yet I was recently informed that these statutes aren't interpreted to include the closure of programs. However, how could a closure of an academic program not be a significant change? What we found at University of Oregon is that when our administrators go off the rails, our elected officials are our only backup in terms of exercising the oversight that they have over these officials. So I'm urging the HECC to find a way to reconsider whether a significant change wouldn't include the closure of an entire academic department or program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Daniel Coyle.
Hello, thanks for providing this chance for us all to provide testimony for the work that you all are doing. I know it's difficult. I can only imagine, really. My organization provides outdoor school to public school students. I think we provide about outdoor school for about 4,000 public school students each year at this point. And some of the other folks that have already spoken have spoken to Measure 99, and the really powerful part of that it's a public initiative that the voters got to decide what they want to see the future, what they want to see us focus on for the future of Oregon. And so I won't go over that too much more, but just to say from experience of running these programs, the recent cuts that we already get cut 20%, already what we can see is that certain schools that are already struggling to just provide services to their kids and their students and teachers, when we put cuts in front of them, they're just that much more likely to say, hey, we're just going to skip outdoor school for this year. This is just one more thing. It's just becoming more of a difficulty than a resource. And it gives them something they can share with parents, like not as an excuse, but they can say to parents and families, hey, we'd love to do outdoor school, but at this point with the cuts and everything. So I think we're just at a point where that's already starting to happen. And if we cut further, we're going to see more schools just feeling like this isn't the place where they want to put their energy. Furthermore, as you know, well, I would just submit and assert that, kids are kind of they've always been the most marginalized population. We've always, in history, they continue to be that. And we already kind of put kids through the ringer with the way we've managed social media and screen time and the amount of outdoor time they have. And excuse me, I got a kid back in the background right now. And we put them through COVID. And which is we need to prioritize making sure that young children, that we're behind them as a safety net, that we're really making sure the future of the state through supporting them is ensured, and that we honor what their voters voted for in 2016. So with that, thanks for your time, and I'll pass it on from there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up, Joshua Danielson. Joshua Danielson.
Hello?
Yes, please
You
proceed.
guys hear me? Great. Chair, Vice Chair, Executive Director, and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Joshua Danielson, and I serve as the Executive Director at Camp Myrtle Wood Outdoor School in Myrtle Point, Oregon. In just 3 years, we've grown a single pilot week in 2024 to a regional program serving 24 schools and nearly 1,400 fifth and sixth graders each year across Southern Oregon. We've created 29 local jobs, partnered with local farms and businesses, and built a program that does more than teach science. It builds trust in communities that have often been left behind. Every week, we witness transportation at our closing ceremony before kids board the bus home. We stand around the campfire in a circle, one by one. Students throw a myrtle leaf into the fire and share what experiences this meant to them. Some of the kids said, "I learned to try new things because I can do more than I thought I could. I'm not scared of the forest anymore. It's actually kind of peaceful. This place taught me to see people for who they are and not who I thought they should be. I couldn't be successful without this place." This is what Outdoor School does. It gives kids belonging, confidence, and hope. But this year's 20% funding cut has already had devastating consequences. Instead of conducting the thorough budget assessment this commission was tasked to do, we were blindsided with 2 days' notice to respond. Because of that, we lost over $100,000 in money serving rural Oregon, eliminated 5 seasonal jobs and 1 full-time position, and our co-directors and I had to cut our own pay to keep the program alive. How did we respond? We provided over $40,000 in scholarships so that no child would be turned away while adults argued about what we were going to disenfranchise kids. We've done everything possible to make it work, but now with another proposed reduction to the 2026 outdoor school budget, let me be clear, another cut would destroy what we've built. At the time of great division in our state, outdoor school remains one of the few things that truly unites us. Alex, a student from Grants Pass, said, "I'm so thankful we could all sing around the campfire together. Just being together without judgment, free of conflict." Whether you grew up in Portland or Pendleton, Outdoor School bridges Oregon's urban-rural divide and reminds us of what we share: our land, our stories, our responsibility to the next generation. And at a time when so many young people are struggling with anxiety, disconnection, and despair, a week of outdoors, away from screens, surrounded by peers and mentors, is exactly what they need more of, not less. Outdoor School is not a luxury. It's a foundational Oregon experience that teaches dignity, resilience, respect, and responsibility. We don't only urge you not to cut the program, but to also reallocate $6 million for the 26-27 school year. Because when Oregon invests in Outdoor School, we're investing in kids who stand around the same campfire and say, "I've learned that nature is beautiful. I should explore it more. And I hope this place never changes. It's perfect just the way it is." These are the voices of Oregon's future, and they're counting on us to listen. Thank you.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Daniel Papaflesas.
Hi, thank you very much for this opportunity. I don't have a lot of titles after my name. You'll notice I'm a parent. I'm retired, but what I wanted to bring to this is something that always concerns me, and that is that I feel like a lot of people just think that it's about trees and nature. And I don't know, and sometimes I feel like legislators and other people, if you haven't had the experience, I know people my age that remember the name of their counselor when they were in outdoor school. I don't know how many of you grew up in Oregon. I don't know how many of you have had this experience, but I can bring a different perspective, much like what Mr. Danielson said and Gwen Hawley, and that is from the perspective of kids. My own kid was very influenced, so much that they became a volunteer. Then they, as a volunteer in high school, they would come home and say, "Dad, some of these kids from the inner city, when we go into the mess hall, this is at Camp Sandy River, and say, we get 3 meals here. My mom sometimes doesn't have enough money for dinner." These kids start really bonding. Now, in the past, I remember when there was a cut and it threatened the week-long session to down to 2 days, and that was not going to fly because a lot of people do not understand what happens during the course of a week. The first couple days, kids are like, with their "you're not the boss of me," that kind of thing with their devices, and then by the end of the week, they're crying to leave. They exchange the emails of their leaders. It's a lifelong effect. So I feel like that perspective goes through their lives. As I said, there are people I know that are my age that were very influenced. It's not just about nature. It's about being able to be uh, to be trusted to do things away from their parents, to take responsibility for not just tasks, but to find out more about who they are. And they really share very personal things with the counselors. And I'm very proud of my kid who is now 35, by the way, and in West Virginia. And they're the ones that got a hold of me about this. And I really appreciate what you guys have to deal with in terms of budget. I know nothing about. I just wanted to bring you what I know about the human perspective. It's lifelong lasting. So
That's
yeah, and I appreciate what Mr. Danielson just said and others that a further cut will
that's
destroy
time.
it. Okay,
Thank
Thank
you
you
thank
very
so
you for
much.
much.
letting me speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our last sign up for public testimony is Les Rogers. Les Rogers.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. Today I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a parent and an educator from Southwest Oregon. My name is Les Rogers, and I'm a former high school teacher and currently work helping prepare students in special education to transition to adulthood in my region. Prior to that work, I was a TRIO grant director preparing students at my community college to complete their degrees and transfer to universities. One of the biggest barriers to those students moving on was to complete their bachelor's degree was having to move to another city to do so. This left many to pursue degrees through out-of-state online schools. We have over 2,000 teachers working on emergency licenses in Oregon. We desperately need this Bachelor of Applied Science and Education to create more access for rural teacher preparation. Too many classrooms, especially special education classrooms, are staffed with teachers on emergency credentials and paraprofessionals who want to have access to training locally. Budget cuts over the next few biennium, worsened by HR 1 that were discussed already today, are just going to worsen the teacher shortage situation as university tuition continues to be out of reach for so many. We have had a shortage of adequately prepared teachers for far too long in Oregon, and it has had massive impacts on my children's education. We can and must do better, and I hope that you'll go forward with the consortium. Thank you.
Thank you
you so
very
much.
much. Chair, that concludes our signed up oral testimony. I will note for the record, we have 29 pieces of written testimony so far submitted. There may be some additional forthcoming. It will all be posted to the public meeting site. Thank you.
Dr. Thank you so much. We are a bit behind schedule, but if any of you have a comment or question and follow up to our testimony, this is an opportunity to do that. Yes, Commissioner Edwards.
I just want to go on the record. If AI companies are serious about building a better future for humanity, they should start by funding outdoor school. Not because kids need campfires, but because they need the agency, the problem solving, and the collective intelligence that they build in that very place. And it's very human capacities that our research shows has been eroded by AI, can be severely eroded by AI. Outdoor school teaches that resilience, that cooperation, how to navigate the uncertainties, exactly the skills that tech leaders say that we're all going to need in an AI-driven world. So instead of talking about UBI, I think we should be asking these companies that are hoovering up, all of everything that we know about, and reinvest in the parts that they can't automate. So if they're shaping the next generation's cognitive environment, I think the least they can do is pay for the one place still teaching how to be human in it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Edwards. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, we will move on. This is item 4.0. It's university program approvals. We have 3 This is a consent agenda item, which makes it possible for us to make a move on all three at the same time, and I would entertain a motion to that effect.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
A second.
Thank you so much. Any discussion? All in favor, hand or vocal?
Aye.
Aye.
I believe that motion passes. Thank you so much for moving on that. We are now looking at a legislative report. Kyle?
Yeah, good morning, Chair Heyman. Apologies for the way I sound. I will be off camera today. I'm going to go out of order compared to the docket item you have. And I'll start with the 2027 Legislative Concept and Policy Option Package Planning. That process is now underway, and we are just beginning to collect legislative concepts and policy option package ideas from staff. We're about 1 year away from finalized bill proposals being approved by the governor's office for introduction, but only a couple of months from having a reasonable shortlist of concepts that we will build out over the course of the next calendar year. This process started with a note to agency leaders asking them to consider a few principles in the development of concepts, and I'll review those with you. The first is to implement the agency's strategic plan. So some recommendations from some of the strategy groups have and will recommend statutory alterations as part of implementing the agency's strategic plan. The legislative concept process provides opportunity for HECC to socialize the new strategic plan with partners and legislators and to secure buy-in towards the positive changes the agency can achieve in its implementation. And if we're not proposing to make these statutory changes now, then it could be as the next opportunity would be July 2029 before those statutory changes could be codified. The second principle is to pursue big, important ideas. And you may be thinking, but will we have the money? And that's certainly a reasonable thought. And of course, that's likely to be a factor. But many ideas take multiple legislative cycles to gain enough traction to become law, and others find unexpected legislative champions. And lawmakers rely on us having a suite of policy ideas available to help them think about solving key problems. So it's important to be thinking about where we want to go next before we let those ideas be constrained by the fiscal realities that we may face. The third principle is to explore interagency collaboration. And there's plenty of work to do to better connect HECC to other agencies that have a role in workforce and economic development, education, and the well-being of students and learners. And elements of our strategic plan further suggest opportunities to collaborate more and better with other state agencies to achieve shared goals. This work can help to build those bridges and lead to new ways of thinking about stale problems. And fourth and lastly is to closely examine the cost benefit of work that we currently do. And this is a cycle to seriously consider whether our programs and grants are meeting the need and are doing so in the most effective and efficient way possible. If we aren't being as efficient or as effective as we could be, let's figure out how we can do better. It's also a time to think about whether we're doing work that can more effectively be delivered by other agencies or providers. This is a good cycle to ensure that we're focused on work that delivers good value. The next benchmark is that in this process is that staff will convene later this month to discuss the policy planning process in more detail. So that's a little bit about planning for 2027, but what about 2026? So first, the State House has made some adjustments to its committee structure leading into the next legislative session. Namely, the House has eliminated the Higher Education and Workforce Development Committee and has split responsibility for those areas into the House Education Committee and the House Labor and Workforce Development Committee. This is a structure we've seen before, and for HECC and partners, this does add to the number of legislators with whom we will regularly engage on our core issues. Whether or not this structural change is positive or negative depends largely on the interests of the committees themselves. But the House Education Committee does have several members assigned to it that previously served on the Higher Ed Committee and who themselves have affiliation past or present with public institutions. So we do have a lot of familiarity to draw on there. The Labor and Workforce Development Committee is less familiar territory. This committee has a dual charge overseeing and developing state labor law, which can be quite contentious in nature. as well as guiding workforce development policy, which is typically more bipartisan. We've had discussions with the committee chair already, and we hope to be able to introduce ourselves and our work formally to the committee in one of their meetings prior to the start of the 2026 legislative session. As for what we expect during that session, the answer is a close look at the budget and some potential rebalancing. With declining federal resources and a more uncertain economic and fiscal outlook, it's likely the legislature will need to make some reductions to agency spending in order to maintain a balanced budget for the biennium. And Ben, of course, earlier described our role in preparing for this session so far. And finally, today I wanted to provide a brief federal update focusing not on the shutdown, but on the fact that the federal government is in the process of dramatically altering the processes and policies it uses in federal grant making. First, an update, the administration has halted the minority serving institutions grant program, arguing such grants were unconstitutional. Those grants were the subject of litigation, but the administration has elected to discontinue them before the courts had an opportunity to weigh in. Next, the administration has removed final grant-making decision-making authority from peer review committees. Moving forward, political appointees will make final grant-making decisions, with the work of peer review committees being advisory to those appointees. And lastly, the administration is moving towards requiring every fund's drawdown request be accompanied by a written explanation and to be approved by agency staff. This is despite the existence of approved agreements and budgets, and could potentially result in funding delays or a failure to disperse, such as could be the case in a government shutdown when staff are unavailable to review those requests. It could also potentially result in the disapproval of requests that previously would have been entirely automated and uncontested in their approval. That's my update today. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, any questions for Kyle?
Hey, how are you?
Yes?
Yes. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I believe we can proceed.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are going to go into a break. It is 10:18, so we will resume 10 minutes from now. Thank you. We ready to resume?
I do not see that all of our members have rejoined quite yet.
Okay, here they're coming on. Pretty close. I'm not sure who we're missing before. We're up to just missing one at this point, I think. So we're going to proceed. This is item 6.0. It's a strategic plan implementation update. And Ben, I believe you're leading this.
Great. Thanks, Chair Heyman, members. So most of you will recall that back in August, I provided what was then the first of what we intend to be quarterly updates. So about every 3 months, or about every 2 commission meetings, to the commission on the implementation of the strategic plan that you adopted about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And so that's what you have in your packet today, and that's what I'll go over the next few minutes. And as the docket item describes, the list of activities that's included within your packet is organized in connection with the strategies that are included within your plan. And they give you a sense, and it's very high level, but a sense of activity that agency staff is undertaking to advance those strategies. There's a caveat I think I included back in August or mentioned in August and included in the report today, and I'll mention again, which is that we're highlighting within the document that I'll go over really added or changed activity on the part of the agency. There is, of course, other work, long-standing work in some cases of the commission and the agency that is that relates to the strategic plan that we're not singling out because they're programs that we are operating, are already working in that realm and support the strategy. So really this, the update today, and again, roughly every quarter, is an effort to describe things we're doing differently or things we're doing newly in order to advance the strategies. I didn't include within the packet this time the strategic plan itself. I think you are all familiar with that and know hopefully where to find it on the HECC website. If we were reformatting that document today, we would list the strategies that are in the right-hand column of the back page. We would number them 1 through 18 because we're using a numbering system now to help with the ease of your tracking and others tracking these implementation efforts. So ideally, you would look at the strategic plan itself with sort of 1 through 18 on the right-hand column, alongside this implementation tracker that's in your packet today as item 6.0A. And you'd see that the implementation report, item 6.0A, is connected by number to some of those 18 strategies. And in fact, the 8 or 9 that we selected to work on initially. So I'll just orient you just a little further to this. Using those sort of the 5 goals, 1 through 5, and then the strategies, 1 through 18, each numbered, we then go on to number action items in connection with the strategy. So if you're looking at material 6.0A in your plan or in your materials for today, you'll see that the first row of the report is action item 1.1. That means it relates to strategy number 1, fostering equitable workforce outcomes, and it is the first of 2 action items that we're conducting in connection with strategy 1. So it's action item 1.1 and then 1.2. The next strategy is number 2, then we go on to number 5, and within each strategy, you'll see point 1, point 2, up to point 3 or 4. I'm not going to go through this entire document. Largely, this is included in your materials, and as it will be every quarter, to give you the opportunity to understand what we're undertaking in connection with the strategic plan, to ask questions or provide suggestions or feedback about the way that the staff can work to support the plan. It is also, in several cases, and it's where I'll focus some of my attention in the brief report I'll give today, in some cases to give you a heads up about potential future commission intersections with this work. For example, where we're working on something, there's an implementation, an action item here that could result in a legislative request, either budget or in the form of a bill, that would come through the commission, or a new reporting, a new report to the legislature, or new activity related to programs and program approval, any of the areas of responsibility that the commission has that are implied or we may be leading toward as a result of these actions. I want you to be aware of and not be surprised when that comes your direction. So let me turn to the document. I'm looking at it. We could put it on the screen, or or you can follow along. I think at this point, I'm just going to work off of mine, and hopefully folks have it in front of them. And if there's a desire to project it, we can. But these aren't slides. I'm just calling attention to a few of the rows in the implementation plan report, item 6.0A. I'll just start with 1.2. Have some exciting kind of draft work now underway to provide graphical reports that show employment and earnings outcomes by major and by institution. So a lot of focus within the higher education and workforce community and amongst for employers and economic development folks, a lot of attention to the question of how our programs and degrees relate to jobs and earnings. That we're drilling down on that and attempting to produce useful reports that college and university boards, administrators, deans, and others could use to help shape program delivery, program offerings. We have some prototypes not yet ready for a much broader review, but that is an exciting project underway led by our research and data office. I'm going to skip ahead to item 2.2. We're still in goal 1, which is relevance, but now on to strategy 2, which focuses on connecting post-secondary education and training to workforce needs. By the way, I will spend only about another 5 to 10 minutes going over this. I can't see, I'm looking at the document on my screen, not you. So if there's a question, somebody's going to have to interrupt me. Actually, you know what? I have it printed. So what I'm going to do, I am going to look at you. Oh, and Guthrie's projecting it. Oh my gosh. All right. The remote meeting. So many options. Okay. Now I can roughly see you, and if there's a question, you can pop in. And there will, even with this abbreviated time that we have for this item, there will be some opportunity after I conclude for discussion or feedback. All right, so I'm jumping ahead to item 2.2. Thanks, Guthrie, for projecting. And this is, again, work we have underway to create, update, or expand, as many as 5 industry-related credentials this academic year. So we've working with our industry consortia that were established under Future Ready Oregon to look for some opportunities to build out the delivery of industry-specific, industry-focused credentials in Oregon, and that work is underway. The next I was going to highlight was 5.3. So this is at the bottom of page 3. So now we've moved on to goal 2, which is alignment. And we've begun some conversations with the Oregon Department of Education on the possibility of developing a state FAFSA completion requirement for Oregon high school seniors. A number of states have done this. I've talked about it before. It's raised FAFSA completion in those states. Anything we recommend here would contain opt-out provisions to ensure that students who have good reasons for not completing a FAFSA, or it's ORSA, which is the alternative for students who aren't eligible to complete the FAFSA, that those students are not going to be prohibited from graduating as a result of that requirement, that potential requirement. But I think ODE has expressed some interest here, and we will continue to sort of workshop this concept potentially more broadly as we look ahead to future action, potentially by the State Board of Education or by the legislature. Item 5.4, also under this, the same strategy of supporting transitions for high school students and others into post-secondary, where Ramona Rodemakers identified some opportunities to work with a class of students in the second semester, the winter and spring terms of this academic year to develop a plan for a broad kind of public information campaign that would raise awareness around options for post-secondary education. 6.1, you're going to hear a lot about. This is one of those items that absolutely has a commission connection. You already touch the transfer project in a number of ways. Your adoption of major transfer maps, your adoptions of rules related to the transfer council and the development of a transfer system in Oregon. You will spend quite a bit of time at next month's meeting hearing more about this proposal to establish a fully transferable lower division block of courses that satisfies, or block of learning outcomes that satisfies general education requirements at all 24 public institutions, sharing that with the Transfer Council. There's a big push underway around this, so you'll engage that much more deeply at your December meeting. Skipping ahead to item 10.2. So this now moving on to goal 3, which is about affordability and access. This item asks staff, and we have different folks from different offices working on each of these actions, and in 10.2 it's a project to develop recommendations for potential HECC recommendations to the legislature or others to support greater sharing of academic programs amongst public institutions. Some of this may show up in the draft report that you'll be asked to review and consider for adoption and transmission to the legislature on budget efficiency in connection with that budget note that the legislature adopted during the last regular session. So you will see this type of recommendation come to you through that channel and potentially others. Also note here, there is quite a bit of sharing of academic program already underway. You heard even this morning about the development of a consortium approach to awarding bachelor's degrees at community colleges, as you have previously for nursing and elsewhere. Item 11.1. I'll note here the status delayed. We've had contracting challenges in launching this. Procurement, I guess this is an opportunity to say procurement is difficult in the state of Oregon, and it turns out that's true even when you're working with another public agency or public entity like Portland State University in this case. So I think we're finally getting close to being able to launch this project through a partnership with Portland State University and their Oregon Kitchen Table initiative. But this has been delayed as a result of contracting challenges. Next, I wanted to point to, and of course I'm skipping a number that folks may have questions or comments on, but I'm going to skip ahead to item 17.1. This is now under the final goal of leadership and focus on economic development. And this item calls for establishing a position at HECC that serves as the agency's liaison to economic development in Oregon, including at Business Oregon, the state economic development agency, as well as local and regional economic development officials, We have tapped the Deputy Director of CCWD at the HECC, Celia Nunez, to start in this role. And she's got a work plan and has already many of the relationships and will further build those relationships and connections. There are, and this is probably a global statement, but I'll focus it on this action. There are challenges in terms of what we can do to free up Celia and others' capacity for this work in the context of budget reductions already underway at the agency in connection with the governor's direction back in August, and then potential future reductions as a result of any action the legislature takes. So, that sort of casts a shadow on a lot of this, but nevertheless, we are proceeding to carve out a little bit of time for Celia, at least initially, in this work. The final three items that are begin with a 0, so starting at the bottom of page 8 and moving on to page 9. These relate to some cross-goal, cross-strategy initiatives or activities that we are planning or are underway. The first 0.1 is our proposal to work with the legislature and other partners during the interim to develop a proposal for new state educational attainment goals. We will kick off that work via a steering committee that Chair Heyman will participate in. I and other HECC staff, college and university, employers, industry folks, labor partners, and others to consider this question and bring back to the HECC and to the Workforce Board updates on its progress, the committee's progress in developing a proposal for updated state educational attainment goals that ultimately could take the form of a legislative concept or a bill to be introduced in the 2027 legislative session. That is on track. We'll send out invitations to that steering committee over the next week or so and launch that in early 2026. Item 0.2 is to determine, I'm including this in the strategic plan because I think it's important. In some ways, though, this is, while I think it aligns well with the priorities of your strategic plan, it's the result of federal action and the passage of HR 1 this summer, which creates a new workforce Pell Grant, federally administered, federally funded Pell Grant program for some short-term training programs that are not today eligible for the regular Pell Grant. The states have a big role in this program. We don't administer the funding, but we do determine via our governors which short-term programs are eligible for the new Workforce Pell Grant. And so that will be work that the HECC and the Workforce Talent Development Board undertake, staff-led, check-ins again with the Workforce Board, and ultimately advice to the governor on program eligibility. So we're setting up a work group to advise that process, and you'll hear about that over the next 6 to 9 months. I think I will stop there and welcome any questions or feedback.
Well, Ben, first I'd like to thank you for putting this thing together. I think we put a lot of work in developing a new strategic plan, and it's so easy for that not to have a visible impact on the agency's work. And I think this creates, I think, a really understandable relationship between the activity that you're engaged in and the goals that we set through that strategic plan. And so I look forward to continued reports on this, and I invite members of the commission to observations or questions that you have about, it's not really our job to establish the sort of administrative work associated with our goals, but I think if we don't understand it, it's appropriate for us to ask those questions. So, yes? Anyone?
It looks like Commissioner Dembro and then Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah, I'm not getting the hands up now. So, but yes, Commissioner Dembro.
Yes, thanks, Greg. And Ben, thanks for keeping us in the loop on this. I look forward to the future updates. I have actually 3 questions, and I'll take them, if we could take them one at a time. The first is in 2.2, the one that talks about the industry consortia. So those are the consortia that are identified under Future Ready Oregon, right? And that's kind of limited to, I think, healthcare, manufacturing, maybe something else. And I'm wondering if in the work that you're doing on, state needs, if eventually that might be expanded to other areas as well in terms of that work.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Dembro. I think we're very interested in the potential expansion of this model to other sectors. So you're right, healthcare, manufacturing, and technology is the third of the 3 industry consortia. They also do require considerable, staff time and effort, as well as employer participation, education, and training. There is I think, a related model that is less dependent on HECC staff and more externally organized and led, with support from the Oregon Business Council on semiconductor workforce needs. So it's a slightly different model, but it's slightly different sort of staffing and support arrangement that we are connected to, but are not in the driver's seat on. So yes, these are not the only 3 industries in Oregon that have significant workforce needs and whose workforce environment is changing rapidly. And so we would be very open to a conversation with the legislature or others about a potential expansion of those tables.
Okay, thanks. My second, and I'll make this my last, has to do with 10.2 and the shared academic programs, which I'm really excited to see that work progress. And I'm wondering, is distance learning being looked at as sort of a mechanism for helping institutions share academic programs, or create partnerships around programs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think distance learning has opened up a lot of possibilities in this realm. And so in a sector that overall has experienced some contraction in terms of student enrollment, I'm thinking both of community colleges and public universities, even though there's been some stabilization across both in the last year or two. It is, I think, very appropriate for when a university, for example, has to eliminate, let's say, again, take an example, a foreign language, because they don't have the continuing capacity to provide that instruction, or maybe they can offer introductory classes in the language, but not advanced classes in the language. It is, I think there's such an opportunity for them to partner with another Oregon university taking advantage of distance education to continue to offer their students access to that language, right? And that is just an example. It happens to be one I've heard from deans about. Like, there's, I think, some energy in that realm, and I think that can be a tool that we use to manage the challenges that we have to maintain access and quality in spite of the fiscal conditions and enrollment issues at some institutions. So yes, that's very much what the kind of thing we have in mind here.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you, Chair Hammond. I don't know that I have so much a question, just hoping that we are going to get reports back on the Pell Grant work, specifically for the certificates and things. That's just of a lot of interest to me, coming from rural Oregon, and that those are a lot of things that people in my area get.
Absolutely. And there will be regular check-ins with the Commission and the Workforce Talent Development Board as we proceed towards these eligibility determinations by the spring, early summer. The federal law lays out some initial criteria that are in the law. So they have to be between 99 and 600 credit hours. They have to be accredited institutions that are the where these programs are housed, most of them likely to be community colleges. But we have some work to do. The feds have some rulemaking to do, and then we have work to do to determine exactly how which of these programs will be eligible, and you will absolutely hear about that over the next 6 to 9 months.
I had one quick question or comment. I think it's a response to Commissioner Dembro and Executive Cannon. When you asked about distance learning, were you specific to synchronous, or were you including e-learning? And I'm just wondering, as we think more broadly about different technologies that might be able to support this, it might even be AI-assisted educational opportunities as well. So just don't want it to, I guess it sounded a little bit like we were limiting it to traditional distance learning strategies because, e-college is growing pretty rapidly. So that's all.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Anything else? Great. We will move on to our next topic, which is Workforce and Talent Development Board Quarterly Report. I believe we have Sherry Dunn with us. You are muted.
Yes, you do. Just gotta get
Thank
my
you.
mic here. How are you all this morning? I think I have a PowerPoint. Am I running it or
I'll bring it
is
up in
someone?
just a moment. I'll bring it up in just
Okay,
a moment.
perfect, perfect. It's not big. It's just for people who like something visual as you're talking, which I know sometimes people do. All right, thank you. So yeah, I'm just going to give you a very simple update. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So as you already know what we do, that our role is to advise the governor on plans, policy, on strategies for the entire workforce system, provide vision, leadership, and innovation for the entire workforce system, and improve customer value through collaboration and systems alignment and accountability, and continuous improvement efforts. And this actually comes out of work that we have done consistently, but specifically as a result of the letter we received from the governor on May 13th of this year. And in the letter, the governor affirmed her connection to the WTDB's vision of equitable prosperity and meaningful work. And the governor also shared her expectations that the WTDB would achieve its results partly through data and outcome-driven approaches. So this is really centering the WTDB as a compiler, as a source, receiving, working with data, giving the governor direction based upon data benchmarks about how the workforce system is doing. So we can go to the next slide. So the governor's letter said, basically she's in lockstep with what we do. She gave those expectations, talked about the data goals, and talked about our authority to hold the state and workforce agencies and local workforce boards accountable for reaching those performance goals and systems outcomes. Now, that doesn't mean we are necessarily setting all of those goals, but the WTDB would love for conversations to be a two-way street, for there to be good transparency around policies and programs that impact workforce. And the governor then directed us to stand up the reporting system associated with these metrics. So how that actually looks is something that is still being worked out. And as a result of that letter, Julia Ponte, the director of the Office of Workforce Investment at the HECC, convened a mid-management work group that's representing key agencies that deliver services and programs within the public workforce system at WorkSource Oregon. And this group produced several recommendations on performance metrics that should be included in our regular updates at the WTDB. And Director Ponte then presented these recommendations in response to our September board meeting. And that was approved by the board
And these recommendations are assess WorkSource Oregon system performance and provide recommendation performance indicators. Require employers to report standard occupational codes of employees to better understand related data and career of participants and customers. Leverage the existing, and I'm reading this from some additional material, which I believe you should have. Leverage the existing WorkSource Oregon performance reporting system, or PRISM, or PRISM. This data system collects and disseminates performance measure data for individuals receiving public workforce or WorkSource Oregon services, and explore moving WorkSource Oregon performance reporting to the Oregon Employment Department, New Labor Exchange, and Workforce Case Management System when available. So, part of that is where does so the WTDB doesn't have like an independent data arm. So then the question becomes, how do we get the data? How do we compile the data? How are we responsible for the data? And how do we work with other governmental agencies, and how are we using that data? So these are some of the things that we are in the process of working out. And the question about OED as a partner in this, but it can't be an unfunded mandate, obviously, for OED because they have their own work. So, but they do have a lot of the numbers that we are looking for, though they're not the only folks who have the numbers that we're looking for. So really, we're just giving you all an update on this, that this is moving down the road. Our goal is to have transparency, and the governor is really requesting that we be in conversation with, and it be a two-way conversation between us and other agencies. So, this is, part of the effort to do that. So Todd, are you on the line? Did I miss anything?
Oh yeah, thank you, Sherry. Guthrie, thank you as well for bringing up that last slide. I don't know if you wanted to touch on anything you've got on those bullet points at all, Sherry, but other than that, I think you covered it off nicely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I kind of said that, but the spirit of collaboration and assignment, reciprocal shared data from the HECC and agencies, and mutual accountability. And one point, yeah, actually, thank you, Todd. The leadership of the HECC and the WTDB, OWI, we are connected. Obviously, we have the relationship with Julia and Ben, but we want to make sure that relationship is, we have other additional board members who bring a lot of expertise. We want to make sure that the relationship between the HECC and our board is open, and that that we can connect with each other on questions or information or support. And so just making that point clear.
I would guess one other thing I'd like to say, so I'm going to take the liberty to do so, and shout out to Senator Dembro. It's good to see your smiling face and hear your voice again. We miss you on the Workforce and Talent Development Board. So excited to see you be on the HECC, and to see what good work you bring with your colleagues to the system.
Yeah, and I love anybody who has that many books behind them. Even if it's AI, I'm super excited.
Any questions for Sherry? I have one quick one. I'm just wondering, it's an area of interest for me. As I'm reading through your list of sort of goals or objectives or purposes, can you help me to understand? I think your role is predominantly responding to current and anticipated workforce needs. In other words, getting people into the existing and projected opportunities in the workforce. And I'm wondering, is there a place in which you are either involved in or connected to others who are perhaps thinking about areas within the Oregon economy where we need to be developing a workforce need, an opportunity? So more, I guess that's more on the economic development side, but I was just wondering if the place in which your work connects with that kind of work.
Yeah, definitely. The WTDB definitely looks at anticipatory needs through both our board members and our consortiums, and looking at what's where the puck will be, to use a phrase, not just where the puck is. And so we do talk about that quite a bit, and that is part of the reason several of the business consortiums around specific areas were stood up to not just look at the current needs, but what is next, what is new. On our board, we have people who reflect that conversation, and industries that are growing, and in our connection and collaboration with other organizations and entities, we look at that. So yes, that is part of that. So some of this data would also be prescriptive about what is missing or what we might anticipate.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Commissioner Edwards.
I'm just interested to if you have a stance, if you have a view on the way the AI companies are talking about unemployment and rapid transition of the economy and jobs. We've got Anthropic, Dario Amodei talking about 50% unemployment in less than 5 years from now for entry-level workers and 20% for all the rest of us. Seems like you guys should have a view on that. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if you look at the governor's letter, our role at the moment is very specifically outlined by her requests. So I would read that, and that is what we are to be doing, which is what we're working on. But that is not to say that the board itself is not interested in those issues. I think board members are very much interested in that. We have my vice chair, Venkat, who was for many years and just recently retired from NVIDIA, who has a high opinion on how we can retrain our current workforce to be complementary to. And I would say that Venkat does not believe those numbers are exactly correct or true, that there is going to be a role for individuals, but what that role looks like and how we get ahead of that is the question. But from a broad-based policy perspective, I think what the governor would ask us to do is look at the data and see what does the data tell us about where we are currently at and where we think we're going. I mean, Venkat and I have different opinions about this. I think this is my personal opinion. I think some of the AI language is fostered by AI investors who have invested trillions of dollars that they need to get back. And so they say a lot of things about what the economy will or will not do with AI that have not at this moment been proven true. And I felt vindicated by the Big Short guy shorting a lot of AI because that is my opinion. But we do think about that. We do have people like Venkat on the board. We do talk about how we can match up our workforce and be complementary to what is happening with AI.
Thank you so much. Sherry, I understand your time with us is limited.
Yes.
We need to move.
So we'll take one more.
Okay.
Chair,
Commissioner Dembro. What?
Nope, just pointing out the
Yes,
hand
thank
from
you.
Commissioner Dembro.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Chair. Sherry, Todd, great to see you again as well. So, one of the traditional roles of WTDB has also been to identify barriers to workforce development and, try to find ways to alleviate or eliminate those barriers. And one of the barriers that has been out there and that, that you've looked at is licensure, creating barriers for individuals who are, for example, refugees new to this country, or people who are currently or formerly incarcerated. You all will be talking more about that this afternoon, but there are licensure barriers there as well. And I'm wondering if the WTDB has this on their agenda, or what sorts of work you might envision on this area of looking at licensure and,
licensure modifications maybe should be made, that sort of thing, where they're onerous and perhaps unnecessary.
Yeah, Todd, do you want to talk about that a bit? And I can talk about what I heard at the NGA.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you, Michael. Again, it's great to see you again. Yeah, you brought up some memories that I think might be relevant. I think you were still on the board when we established that licensure subcommittee at the behest of, I think it was mainly Ken Madden, who was talking about and frustrated with the barriers in terms of reciprocity with other states as one of the many-legged pieces of furniture to support better workforce recruiting, retention, and overall capacity filling. So, that comes to mind. We tried that back then. I think Rod Belisle with IBEW was a big part of that, might have been one of the co-chairs. But we haven't specifically focused that on that as of late, although I love the reminder and the call out. And right away, my brain went to potentially bringing that topic to the Continuous Improvement Committee, which was established under Senate Bill 623 and co-staffed by WTDB staff in conjunction with local workforce board staff. And the timing is actually pretty good on that, Sherry, because we're in the midst of pulling together our RFP for the next iteration of the WorkSource Oregon assessment. So thanks for that, Michael. So I think there are probably other spaces within the board, Sherry, that we could consider, pulling that topic in and raising it up, which I'm happy to discuss with you offline.
Yeah, and I want to say too that the consortiums are discussing this. So we have different consortiums working on healthcare, technology. We do have these consortiums and they are having these conversations, and some of that may come out of some of their recommendations. When we were at the National Governors Association for the workforce board meeting, this issue came up, and there are states who are definitely farther down the road. And many of those states tend to be red states because they are very big on apprenticeships, non-traditional work paths, this kind of thing. And so there are states that I think we can look to see how are they achieving this, specifically looking at interstate licenses and that kind of thing. So yes, Todd, and the consortiums do discuss this, and I think there are other states that we can look to get additional information. Great. But yes, I do have to run.
Appreciate
that.
Yes,
we're going now.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your report and for your time with us. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 8.0, which is a action item on the Oregon Conservation Corps annual report. I believe Doug Denning will be with us. Hi, Doug.
Hey, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. My name, again, Doug Denning. I serve as a senior policy and program advisor within the Office of Workforce Investments. And I also serve as the director of the Oregon Youth Works Advisory Board. And I'm here in that capacity this morning. So I'm here to bring you the legislatively required annual report for the Oregon Conservation Corps for your approval. And some of you may recall that I was before the Commission back in June asking for the approval of the Oregon Conservation Corps biennial report, and maybe wondering why I am back so soon. When I presented in June, we did not yet have the data and final reports from the grantees for January through June of 2025. And it was decided at that time to go ahead and move forward with the report for approval to meet the legislative due date, knowing that at some point in time, we would still need to report out on January through June 2025 time period. And then since then, things have changed slightly. So during this past legislative session, Senate Bill 83 amended the statute to require that the report be reported out to the legislature and the Governor's Wildfire Programs Advisory Council, or the WPAC, annually rather than biennially. It was further agreed upon at that time by the HECC and the WPAC that the reports be submitted no later than mid-January of each year. So we're a little ahead of the game, which feels good. So the report before you meets the revised statutory requirements as an annual report. It includes the final January through June 2025 data. Staff recommend the commission approve the report as submitted and advance it to the legislature and the WPAC. And I know that's a little convoluted and kind of a web, so I certainly can answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Any questions for Doug? This is an action item, so I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So
I
moved.
move to approve.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you so much. Any discussion? Sorry. Great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that action item is approved. We're going to move on to item 8.2, which is another action item. This is the Employees at Public Institutions report, and Amy Cox is here. Thank you. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Chair Heyman. Good morning, Chair Heyman and members of the commission. Welcome to the new commission members. I know we're slightly behind and I will be concise for you. This is an action item. It is an annual report that the commission submits to the legislature by statute on the employees at all of the public universities and community colleges. These employees are grouped into different buckets, if you will. Primarily administrators and managers, classified and professional non-teaching staff, and faculty. This is a report that we have submitted on your behalf every year for many years. It is a little different than many of the reports, all of the reports that I come in front of you about, in the sense that it is not about students for the most part. It is about staff, and the institutions themselves provide the data to us, and we compile that and put it forward. We don't actually have employee level data in our office, so we provide detailed information to the institutions and about how to tally their employees and provide that information to us. Last year, when we presented this to you, you all requested that we include students and student employees in this report. And we worked with the institutions over the last year to do so, and they are now in the report as their own group. So that is an advance from prior years, and we're grateful to the institutions for providing that. It was difficult. A few of them were not able to do so, but they are working on doing so moving forward. With that, I'm happy to take questions, and we'll pause.
Any questions for Amy on the report? Yes, Commissioner Smith.
Thank you so much for this report, and I really appreciate the improvement with the student employee data. And I recognize that universities have a hard time collecting some of this stuff, especially if they haven't been asked to in the past. I'm really interested in how universities self-report the classifications of their employees. For instance, I know pretty intimately about the University of Oregon, as that's the institution I work at. We have about 1,800 classified employees, and so that's all, dining workers, accountants, office specialists. I mean, it's quite the gamut. And then we have about 1,800 officers of administration who the university classifies as management. And so they're outside of our bargaining unit, outside of a collective bargaining unit. So here in this report, they use a PECBA, public employees state language to determine who's a manager and who's not. But here they're saying administrators are only 206 people. So I'm just pointing out that they, reporting is kind of different, I guess, depending on the audience. I'm not sure. Also looking at the extraordinarily high, in my opinion, as a hourly wage earner, compensation for those administrators. So if we're looking for efficiencies, of course, I would, not that HECC has a lot of influence over administrator salaries, but that is something, if we did have any influence over, that we could suggest could be looked at a little closer, especially in relation to hourly wages. But thank you so much for this report. It's very, very interesting.
Any other questions or comments?
There's a hand from Commissioner Martinez.
Hi, Commissioner Martinez.
Yes, thank you, Chair Hammond. I was curious, just all of this is the second time now, after all my time on the HEC, that I've seen this report. How all is this report used across the HEC and even institutions themselves?
Commissioner Martinez, thank you for that question. Chair Heyman, Commissioner Martinez, it is that is a question that I have received over the years a few times around this report, and and of course I don't know all of the ways if people don't tell me, but what I can tell you, I do know, is that it is extremely helpful for unions in collective bargaining to understand the some of the sort of baseline data at the institutions, and to see how those change over time within an institution. I will also tell you, on occasion, we receive questions about the number of employees that our institutions staff, that they have on their payrolls, and we're able to provide that information. It is it's the only report like it that has this official number across the state. And as such, I think one of the things it does is it really demonstrates just the size of the higher education industry and the economic engine that many of our institutions provide to a local economy. That was particularly clear during the pandemic when we received questions about the number of staff, and I saw across the state, not for an individual institution, of course, the size of our public sector higher education institutions in comparison with some of our other industries in the state, and how important they are to the state's economy.
Great, thank you, Amy. Any other? We will move forward. This is an action item, so I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So moved, Gail.
Thank you, Gail.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we have approved item 8.2. I do want to let you know that Commissioner Lawson has joined us, so just so you're aware of that. Thank you for joining us, and we will move on to strategic activity number 3, pathways. And I believe, Amy, this is your item again.
It is, and I apologize. I don't believe I introduced myself for the record. And if I failed to do so, I'm sorry. For the record, my name is Amy Cox, and I am the Director of the Office of Research and Data at the HEC. Yes, Chair Heyman, the next item is mine. This is not an action item. This is informational for you. And this has to do with transfer, community college to public university transfer. This has been a major initiative of the Commission and the agency and the institutions for several years, and the legislature, I would add, for several years. And there has been significant progress and work done since 2017, which was the first bill in, I would say, the sort of current chapter of current community college to public university transfer. And after that bill was passed in 2017, we put together, there are reporting requirements around it, and we put together measures of tracking progress in the work of smoothing the pathway and clearing the pathway for students to transfer from an Oregon community college to public university. That was several years ago. And since that time, there have been additional statutes passed, laws passed, and there have been additional tools incorporated into the work, including Common course numbering as an example. There have also been the adoption of the core transfer map to apply for general education requirements and several major transfer maps for students who are majoring in particular areas that they'd be able to transfer. And if they fulfilled that major transfer map, they'd be able to transfer with junior standing in the major. So with all of these changes, it became time to really look at how we measure transfer and track transfer. And to that end, the Transfer Council created a subcommittee called the Student Measures of Success Subcommittee to examine how we track transfer, what is feasible, and what additions or refinements or subtractions the council wanted to undertake. And so what I have in front of you is a presentation that gives you some context for these measures of transfer and explains them in a bit of a preview for next month when you will see rules about these exact measures, and you'll know then what it is you're asking to vote on around the rules. So with that, I will share screen and walk you through this. And I invite your questions or comments while I talk. That's fine. There we go. So this is essentially what I just said. Between January and May, we met as a subcommittee. The subcommittee was comprised primarily of community college and public university faculty with other staff there as well. And the agency provided staff support. I was at all of those meetings and walked the subcommittee through what we do and what's possible moving forward as they brainstormed different possibilities. They decided on a set of measures that were forwarded to the Transfer Council, which approved those earlier this year. This is how we have been tracking transfer. So these are not the new measures, although they're included in the new measures. But this is how we have been tracking transfer, including through this year. The primary measure of success in transfer is the bachelor's degree graduation, right? So students who are transferring from a community college to a public university are enrolled in a bachelor degree program. Their goal is to complete that bachelor's degree, and that's the primary way that we track transfer, is with a graduation rate that compares transfer students with non-transfer students or first-time freshmen. Students who came into a university as a freshman compared to students who came into university as a transfer. Now, because students can transfer at many points in that bachelor's degree program, we have to compare something that's like apples to apples, right? So we compare first-time freshmen who are about halfway through their program with transfer students who come in with at least 90 credits. In other words, half of the credits for transfer. We have, I will tell you, looked at subtle but important differences in how we measure the halfway, and none of them really make a huge amount of difference. There are subtle differences in the numbers, the outcomes, but the trend is always the same, and the gap is always very similar. And that trend is that students who came in as first-time freshmen are much more likely to graduate and complete that bachelor's degree program than students who come in as a transfer student. So here I show you the most recent year of data. 84% of students who came in as a first-time freshman and stay at the university enrolled for their first couple years till they're about halfway through. Those halfway through first-time freshmen, 84% of them graduate compared to 70% of transfer students. So it's not a small gap. The second way that we track transfer progress is with the number of credits at graduation. Transfer students are more likely to graduate with more credits than first-time freshmen. A bachelor's degree program requires 180 credits to complete. First-time freshmen graduate on average with 202 credits, transfer students 207. That may or may not to you seem like a large gap. It's about 2 courses. It's about another term. It is both greater cost, sometimes out of pocket because financial aid has been used up. It is also an opportunity cost because you're not in the labor market with that bachelor's degree for that term, right? That gap varies widely by major, such that technical majors that have more precise requirements and less flexibility in what courses have to be taken, we see a much larger gap. And we also see a narrower gap in majors that have a lot of flexibility, like a general or an interdisciplinary liberal arts degree. We also see that those more flexible majors, such as an interdisciplinary liberal arts degree, are more common among transfer students. So it is possible that they are choosing those simply to complete, right? So this gap may be an underestimate. And then the 2017 law requires us to measure student debt, the impact of an indirect measure of transfer progress, the concern being that transfer students accumulate more debt and potentially without the earning potential of that bachelor's degree. And so we use a federal report that provides information for all students at all colleges and universities of student debt. But because it's a federal measure, we can't cut it by student type or major or anything like that. So this shows you the amount of student debt in the most recent year. And I saw a hand, but now I don't see it.
Yeah, you just answered my question. Thank you,
Oh,
Dr. Cox.
okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
I was hoping we could get a breakout to see community college students who graduated and versus all 4 years at the university. But sounds like
about the debt or about the
Yes.
credits? About the debt. I wish I
About the
could.
debt.
I sincerely wish I could. We do not have student level debt data from the community colleges. It is an extraordinary lift for them. And so that is why we have gone with this measure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yamasaki?
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So the question I have regarding the transfer students graduation, are these transfer students that come from community colleges and other universities?
Chair Heyman, Commissioner Yamasaki, that's a great question. These are students who come only from an Oregon community college and transfer only to an Oregon public university. We have isolated only those students.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask another question in regards to that? Is that broken out by institution and is it provided to the institutions in Oregon?
Chair Heyman, Commissioner Middleton, it is indeed. We have the graduation rates and the number of credits at graduation broken out by each university. It's part of the transfer report that the commission, you'll see next month, the commission submits. And we haven't necessarily given the credits at graduation to the colleges, but the colleges we also publish on our website the graduation rates by college, sending college, and by receiving university.
Thank you.
Chair, I have a question as well, Amy. You may have said this and I missed it, but in terms of what constitutes a transfer student, is there a certain number of credits that would qualify them as a transfer student? I mean, there may well be students who've had dual credit courses through a community college, or, who've just taken a couple of courses. Those would not be considered transfer students, would they?
Chair Hayman, Commissioner Dembro, you are correct. Those would not be considered transfer students. Transfer students typically come in with at least 36 credits, and students who are coming in as admitted first-time freshmen, even if they bring significant numbers of credits, are not considered transfer students. All right, so I'll keep going. So in the subcommittee, we reviewed those measures, and we also looked at several other contextual factors as the group brainstormed different ideas. There were our statutory requirements and key attributes that the council told the subcommittee they needed to take into account, and those for any new measures, and those included measures that identify student outcomes, measures that identify streamlined pathways, measures that promote equity, measures that are specific, quantifiable, and observable, measures that are student focused, measures that are aligned with statewide goals, and measures that are actionable and transparent. And then I encouraged, and the subcommittee welcomed, 2 additional considerations, and they were that the measures should be understandable to people who are not necessarily deeply involved in transfer work, nor deeply involved in research and data, and they should be straightforward to calculate so that we can ensure consistent tracking of them over time and across groups. We want to be able to have something that is not requiring some unique set of data that may or may not be reported, or this kind of thing. So the committee brainstormed about a lot of things. There was significant time spent on intent to transfer. This is not something we have data on. It is also something that is not necessarily observable, because students' intent to transfer also changes over time, right? So that is something that didn't end up in the conversation at the end, for example. And this is where we landed. The first 3 measures are the exact same 3 I talked to you about already. So graduation rates, number of credits at graduation, and student debt. What the subcommittee added was some reporting requirements to publish how those things vary by major transfer map, core transfer map, and student characteristics. That is, at least for the first 2 that we calculate, I should say. For the student debt one, we still can't do that. But for graduation rates and number of credits at graduation, to have be part of our publishing, whether we are seeing a narrowing of the graduation gap among students who transfer with the major transfer map, for example, as opposed to students who transfer with 90 credits but don't have that major transfer map. And also by student characteristics. So things such as income background, race, ethnicity, gender, rural, urban. These are regular breakouts that we do to track whether all students are accessing and able to access the same benefits of post-secondary education and training. And those are very straightforward for us to do. We have those already compiled. We can do that, and we'll continue, and we'll begin doing that next year, and are enthusiastic in our office about being able to put that data out broadly. The student debt, as I said, will continue to be from the federal website. And so it will continue to be just a very sort of aggregate number, indirect number. And there are two new measures, and they're the two in green. First is the utilization of transfer tools. This is in some ways an institution level measure, but it still uses student data. And the intent here is to see, are these new transfer tools of common course numbering, major transfer maps, core transfer maps, getting implemented, getting into, if you will, the hands of students? Are students actually in these new pathways? And if not, why not? And where are they? Is it happening more if there's variation across the institutions? So these measures look at the percentage of students who earn a major transfer map. I should say the percentage of community college students who earn a major transfer map among the community college students who earn any sort of associate degree, right? So what's the ratio there? We don't expect it to be 1-to-1 because there are many majors that don't have a major transfer map. But the question is, are we seeing this, especially within the majors where there is a major transfer map? Are we seeing students earning that MTM, or are they still earning an associate degree in general? Similarly, the percentage of students who transfer with a core transfer map, that's general education requirements. Among those students who transfer in with less than 2 years of credits, did they transfer in with a CTM, or did they transfer in with, 2 years of credits or less than 2 years of credits that are, potentially all over the map? And then lastly, the percentage of new credentials seeking community college students who complete at least one common course numbering course. Right? So here the point is not only the percentage, but the trend over time for really all of these measures. We want to see these, this implementation rising over time. And then lastly, this is the transfer rate. Thus far, in our reporting, we have focused our reporting on the students who do transfer, right? Because we're really focused, again, on that bachelor's degree completion. The limitation of that is that there are students who intended to transfer who never made it, and we're not capturing that. So this is really about the sending, right? This is about the community college students who do transfer. So here the measure is the percentage of new credential-seeking community college students who transfer within 4 years from their start at the community college. So we will restrict this to exclude CTE students. We don't expect they're intending to transfer. But to those community college students who are credential seeking and enrolled in lower division collegiate courses, what's the percentage who transfer to a public university within 4 years? So that's the set of the new measures. And with the broader set of measures and with the breakouts that we'll publish, we will be able to answer a number of different questions, or at least provide a lot of light into these questions. They are about not only the overarching question, is the pathway smoothing and clearing? So are we seeing improved transfer in Oregon? Using some of these measures together, really about the sending and about the bachelor's degree completion. Is that happening across the state in a consistent way across institutions, across student groups, or are we seeing gaps? And if so, where are we seeing them? Are we seeing these new tools getting widespread use? And are we seeing that they're related to improvements? And how are we seeing things happening? This is that last question, is it better to transfer after the first year or the second year? Really, that's about looking at those bachelor's degree graduation rates for students who came in with a CTM compared to students who come in with a MTM. So none of this is going to happen instantly. Students, the institutions have to implement the programs. Students have to enroll and complete. So a slight note of caution about time. We all want to see the outcomes today, but it will take some time. But this is where we're going. And I wanted to give you all a chance to ask questions about it and understand it before the rules come in front of you.
Amy, I have two hopefully quick questions. One is, how do degree partnership program students show up in this data set? And the other is, have you thought at all about how your metrics and measuring might be structured such as we could or would want to compare our outcomes to other states?
Chair Heyman, those are great questions. Thank you. Degree partnership programs will have to take on a case-by-case basis because we don't have them consistently across the state. So we'll treat them the way we treat sort of specific majors. And in terms of comparisons with other states, we're not at a place as a nation where we have a really standard set of transfer outcomes, but the bachelor's degree graduation rate and the sending information, the new measure of sending students, are things that we should be able to compare with other states. So we're hoping that that will be able to happen in the coming years as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yes, I believe Commissioner Smith?
Commissioner
No.
Proctor Andrews?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if there's any data included on any credits from these transfer students that are gained by experience learning.
Commissioner Proctor Andrews, that is Chair Heyman. That's a great question that I've never received, and I really appreciate it because credit for prior learning is another initiative in the state. Credit for prior learning is something that certainly the institutions award. I haven't thought about breaking out by credit for prior learning, but I welcome the opportunity to do so. We could certainly see how do some of these measures look different for transfer students who have credit for prior learning. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
I feel like it might give more insight on how, how comfortable the students are with school or like how they view their own progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Commissioner Dembrow, I think we have one more question.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Amy, this is such important work. I really appreciate it. And, I think it's, when it is fully rolled out, it's going to, shed light on things that maybe we wouldn't really want to see light shed on, but we need to be really assessing the effectiveness of programs. Historically, one of the indices that community colleges have pointed to is that students who graduate after transferring from a community college tend to graduate with cumulative grade point averages that are comparable to those of the students that begin at the university. And I'm wondering, I guess I've always wondered to what extent that might be in part a function of their grade point average when they were at the community college, if that pulled them higher, and if we could see how their GPA was when they were in their first 2 years, or pre-transfer versus post-transfer. And I'm wondering if that's anything anyone has looked at.
Chair Heyman, Commissioner Dembrow, that is a really interesting question. And I don't have a direct answer for you, but I will tell you what I know. We have looked for, and I guess I should also say, I apologize if it sounded like we were sort of, when I said we were enthusiastic about publishing these data, I did not mean to imply that we were sort of hoarding the data. The Transfer Council actually sees a fair amount of this, and we work with the data to help identify majors, for example, for major transfer maps. But it hasn't been part of the published report, is all I meant. Some of that work that we have done with the transfer groups, major faculty groups working on a major transfer map in particular, we have looked at grade outcomes, comparing students in different kinds of sequences, different kinds of course sequences, to see, because we do see sometimes one of the things that the colleges and the universities have to come to resolution on is for a major transfer map is that the courses and the course sequences and the credits that are involved are the same across all 24 institutions, right? And so there are often questions that come up about, well, students who take these courses versus students who take these courses. And so we're comparing community college students who took a course in their first couple of years with university students who took a course in their first couple of years, and then what happens in their later years at the university. And what we have found across a number of these analyses, not tons of analyses, but some of them for a few different majors, is that their outcomes are very close. Like we're talking B to B plus, right? Like we have not found any sizable difference in grade outcomes for these major specific questions that we've tackled, where we're comparing, where we're looking at later university, enrollment, but comparing community college and public university students.
Thank you. I'm really happy to hear that and appreciate that.
Sure.
Commissioner Yamasaki, I believe you have a question.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be real quick. That's really interesting, Amy. I guess I'm wondering, how does dual credit as they enroll in a community college or university impact the outcomes? Do we know?
That's a very good question, Chair Heyman, Commissioner Yamasaki, and I don't have a concise answer for you. I will say that it is a very involved process because, of course, students come in after high school with different amounts of credit they've earned through dual credit and other accelerated college credit programs. It is not something we've looked at directly. I think there are also alignment questions around this, right? The extent to which accelerated learning is about exploring options when one isn't having to, pay for the courses, compared to accelerated learning being about completing courses and saving and having them all apply with an expectation that they apply toward a program after high school. That's an open question. It does make looking at the impact of accelerated learning a little more challenging because there's an intent question there. But I think that you raise a question that we will be probably examining in some of the later years as we start to get some of these basics underway. We'll be able to say, well, how does this look different for those students who come in with 25 credits, or 30 credits of accelerated learning? Obviously, they can move through a bachelor's degree program or an associate degree program faster if those credits apply. But how is it affecting the transfer? And that's where I think we'll really see the alignment questions start to be revealed.
Amy, thank you so much. I really appreciate this report. And just thank you for your attention to this. As Commissioner Dembro has indicated, this is a critically important issue, I think, to our students and certainly to the work of the commission. So thank you very much. We do have a few minutes, so we're going to try and tackle item 11 before lunch. There are two action items. They are permanent rule amendments, and I believe we have Matthew Altman online to help us with that. Hi.
Yes. Thank you, and good morning, Chair Heyman and Vice Chair Simnett and Commissioners. My name is Matthew Altman, and I support the Academic Policy and Authorization Unit, or APA, and today I'm here to talk to you about a proposed permanent rule change for your approval. The change would amend rules related to complaints about schools. This is the first of two rule actions. The First Amendment would modify OAR 715.011.0080 so that complaint inquiries can come from all persons and not just from students as defined. This aligns with the legal requirements and also ensures more consistency between private career school rules, which already allow for complaints from non-students, and other types of schools. The next part of this change to the OAR 715.045.0018 section 6 would require private career schools to include complaint information in student files. Specifically, when a school receives a written complaint from a student, that complaint and certain information about the school's response to the complaint must be included in the file to ensure that some form of documentation exists in a school's records later when the student comes to the HECC to ask the HECC to take a formal complaint. The third change in this amendment would be to OAR 715.045.0023, subsection 3, and OAR 715.011.0080, subsection 5. This modifies the information that must be provided by a person submitting a formal complaint to the HECC. And the proposed changes would reduce the type and amount of personally identifiable information required by the HECC in line with best practices. In some cases, providing this information is a barrier for students because of privacy concerns they have. Other changes here would involve removing things like requiring the student to put the specific address of the school to make it easier for students to file a formal complaint when they lack that kind of information. The final part of this complaint-related change would be to change the complaint filing window specified in OAR 715.045.0023, subsection 2. Currently, this complaint window closes 1 year after the student's last attendance. This is for private career schools. The proposed amendment would keep this window open until 1 year after the student has exhausted the institutional grievance process, or 1 year from the date of their last attendance, whichever is later. This allows for students who are able to initiate a school's grievance process to complete that process, even if it takes a long time, without affecting their ability to file a formal HECC complaint afterwards, should they wish to do so. These amendments were discussed with the Private Career School Advisory Committee on several occasions, and most recently on September 18th, 2025, and its members were supportive. The public comment period for this rule began with filing on September 11th, 2025, and ended on October 24th. A public comment hearing was held on October 17th, and the HECC did not receive any public comments on this rule action. This is an action item, and we hope you will approve this permanent rule.
Thank you so much, Matt. If there are questions, I'll take them, but if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you so much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have approved item 11.1. Let's move on to 11.2.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good morning once again, Chair Heyman, Vice Chair Simnett, and Commissioners. I'm here again to talk to you about a second proposed rule change for your approval. This change would amend rules that pertain to HECC's Office of Degree Authorization, or ODA. The proposed change would move the existing fee schedule for the ODA, previously contained in statute, into the ODA's rules. This change is in response to the enactment of HB House Bill 3028 in the 2025 legislative session. The proposed rule amendments modify OAR 583.030.0046 to include all the fees that were previously specified in statute in ORS 348.606. No new fees are added and no increase to existing fee amounts is made. I would note that under House Bill 3028, the legislature maintains the ability to reject future fee modifications with which it disagrees, so long as those modifications have not been envisioned or required by legislatively adopted budgets or legislation. This is due to a legislative ratification process that requires agencies like the HECC to clear fee increases with the Legislative Fiscal Office and the Department of Administrative Services. Other proposed changes to OAR 583.030.0030, 583.030.0044, and OAR 583.030.0048 are minor revisions that update references to the fees that were previously located in statute. These amendments were discussed with the ODA Advisory Committee on several occasions, most recently on October 15th, and its members were supportive. Public comment period for this rule began with filing on September 12th, 2025 and ended on October 24th. A public comment hearing was held on October 17th, and the HECC did not receive any public comments on this rule action. This is an action item also, and we hope you will approve this permanent rule.
Thanks again, Matt. Just as he has noted that these two action items came to us with significant review processes, and we are the final step in that work. So a question or a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This item is approved, and thank you, Matt, so much for your work on this. And it is 12 noon, believe it or not, and we are exactly on schedule. And thank you for your cooperation in getting us to this point. So we are going to break for 1 hour for lunch, and we will reconvene at 1 p.m. Thank you.